will know if you've been watching our videos, we have just come back from a trip to Disneyland Paris. We were there for 4 nights in August 2020, and we thought we'd do a video today just because it was the first time that we have flown since the COVID guidelines came into play, and also it's our first ever time getting the train from the airport to Disneyland Paris. So we wanted to share our experience. Lots of new stuff for us, lots of stuff that's kind of still the same, but we've had a few questions about sort of like how everything worked and how different things were, and I think travelling sort of during the pandemic is one of the things that people are finding quite nerve-wracking, so we just wanted to come on and share our experience. Thank you so much if you've been following along with our vlogs. We have got a few vlogs on our channel, so if you haven't watched those yet, do check those out. We had an amazing time, yeah. And if you are interested in knowing what Disneyland Paris has been like since it reopened, then obviously you'll be able to see for yourself. So we are going to be talking about our experience in the airport, flying, and also the train as well. We flew from Manchester Airport to Charles de Gaulle, and we flew from Terminal 1, that's where EasyJet fly out of. As soon as you get to the airport, you do need to put your mask on. You are required to wear a mask in the airport, obviously, and on the plane and the airport the other side. So, but we did notice when we went, because you go up a lift before you get into the main terminal building at Terminal 1, and just kind of as we came out of the lift, as we were walking to the door, there were vending machines with masks inside. So if you do forget, hopefully don't panic. There are ones that you can buy at the airport. There were lots of signs, obviously, reminding you about wearing masks and obviously social distancing. But I think really, apart from that, as you walked into the terminal building, everything was pretty much the same. We didn't have to check in or do a bag drop because we did online check-in and just took hand luggage, but it did look kind of fairly busy. It did look like a normal day, and there was social distancing a little bit in the queues, we did notice. And then we went to security. Now there are like 2 entrances, I think, for security in Terminal 1. It was a different one than the one we normally go to. It was blocked off and it was right at the end. So we weren't sure if they were sending everyone through the same way or if it's busier, both entrances are open. We're not really sure, but we did ask and they directed us to the right place. Yeah. When we got down there, again, there was no marks on the floor, and the queue did wind around, it did snake around, so we kind of were quite close to the people who were sort of queuing in the opposite direction to us. Yeah. There were no markers on the floor for social distancing. We were actually using our cabin cases to try and make some space between us and the people behind us. So that's a good tip. If the person behind you is getting a little bit close, that's what we did anyway, wasn't it? Again, there were signs, but not everyone obviously follows the signs or the rules that everyone knows are in place, but at least everyone did have a mask on, so that is a little bit more reassuring. There were lots of hand sanitizer stations throughout the terminal after you come out of security as well, like loads. Yeah, so tons. So that was really good as well. Obviously that's a change from how it normally is. But yeah, apart from those things, it was very normal. Yeah, I think there are a few shops and restaurants that weren't open, and we didn't have like an early morning flight or anything. We had sort of a lunchtime flight, so there were a few places that we expected to be open that weren't. Whether or not they have started to reopen them since then, we're not too sure. But yeah, just something to bear in mind if you're going to be waiting in the terminal area. Yeah. When we went to the gate, people were trying to social distance a little bit. It was very tricky. There were 2 flights going from gates right next to each other, and we had to go down some stairs. And they had one flight queuing on one side of the stairs and one on the other, which obviously meant that people couldn't social distance. Hopefully that they've realised that that wasn't a great plan. You know, but at the time, our experience was at the time it was really difficult to social distance at the gate because of that situation. Yeah. And also queuing downstairs as well, it made things a little bit difficult. So it's just something to really watch out for, but there's nothing we could really do about that, unfortunately. that's just how it was being managed at the gate, and I'm sure by now they would have realised that that perhaps isn't the best way to work. And when we got to the gate, as we were showing obviously like our passports and things and our boarding passes, they did ask for a health declaration form, which they said that you needed to get into France. Now we did check all the information before we went. EasyJet send you links and things to double check what you need to get into the country that you're going to, and it did say that the UK were exempt, and Katie looked on the government website for France as well. Also they were saying that we didn't need a health declaration form, but when we actually got to the gate, the guy was panicking that we didn't have this form, and there were a few other people in front of us as well that didn't have the form either. Obviously if we'd have gone to check in at like normal check-in, or we'd done a bag drop, maybe we'd have been reminded about it or asked about it. It did look like the people who had the forms had it on the same kind of paper, so whether or not they had copies at check-in, they were asking if you had one, and if you didn't have one then they were giving it to you to fill in before you got to the gate. We're not too sure, but that's definitely 100% what it looked like. And yeah, a few of us were in the same situation. They did, the guys that were checking us in sort of like at the gate were a bit like they were trying to track down some more forms, and so they obviously do have them, but they didn't have enough, and it was kind of holding it up a little bit. So in the end what they said was that once we got on the plane, to ask the cabin crew for one of the generic forms, which is what we did, didn't we? We asked for them, they gave it to us, they were like, not sure this is exactly what you need, but we filled it in anyway. But yeah, just something, in hindsight I think maybe we would just fill everything out just in case. I think that just like we felt like we were really prepared, and that really like shook us a little bit, didn't it? I think you know, it kind of put a little bit of pressure on us, and we were literally sat on the flight the whole way there wondering if they were going to accept this form, and it's just not what you need. And yeah, the stress on the guy's face who like was, you know, we showed our boarding pass too, it kind of made us feel really stressed as well, and it just wasn't really a good start. Now when we did get to the other side and we actually flew to this, you know, we got to France, nobody asked for it, nobody wanted it, so you know, maybe we did need it, maybe we didn't. We've still got no clue. But maybe it's just better just to fill it in, even though it does say the UK is exempt from filling it in. Just fill it in and take it, because then you know you've got it if you're asked for it. But yeah, it was a little bit stressful, especially because we're so prepared and we had really researched and things. So yeah, I would say just fill out, if you think you might need a form, just fill it out and take it, because the worst that can happen is like you don't get asked. You don't get asked for it. So our experience once we got onto the plane was very, very normal. It was a full flight. As far as we were aware, there were no empty seats. There was somebody sitting next to us who we didn't know. So obviously they're not really social distancing on the plane. So we were quite surprised by that, I think, that we would have somebody sitting sort of right next to us. But yeah, I guess it's just a case of, you know, if there is somebody sitting next to you, just to remain sort of keeping facing forwards. Obviously we did have masks on. Now a lot of the flights do ask that you wear sort of the disposable sort of medical style masks. We tend to wear the sort of material face coverings when we're out and about at home, and that's what we actually wore for the parks. But they do say that you have to wear the disposable ones on the flight, and it kind of made sense that, you know, once we'd sort of travelled in them, we could just throw them away, so we didn't mind it too much, but we just do prefer sort of the fit of the fabric ones. But everyone had one on. As far as you could tell, people weren't really removing them other than to eat or drink, which was good, which obviously is allowed. Other things on the plane, they had extra information in the safety briefing just about like things like keeping your mask on, and just making sure you wash your hands and things like that. And I think it was like how many you could queue for the toilet, so like don't get up if there's already like one person waiting or something, just so that everyone's not kind of congregating near the toilets or standing up in the aisles. They wanted you to be sort of sitting in your seat the entire journey, really. They did ask that you didn't wipe down your seat area with your own sort of sanitizing wipes or anything like that. We tend to do that if we're on sort of like a long haul flight, but they did say they've got sort of special sort of disinfectant that they use, and that had already been done and things like that. So that's one of the things that was included in that briefing as well. They did say that it was a limited service with food and drink. Our cabin crew, bless him, he did such a good job. He literally listed everything that they had on offer because they didn't have the usual menus in the seat pockets and things. So that he read out this like list. I mean, it didn't sound very limited. It sounded like they still had a lot of choice. We didn't actually buy anything during the flight. We'd already eaten before we got on the plane, but they did come around just the once with asking if you wanted sort of food or drink and things like that. So yeah, and also they were really good at coming around with rubbish collection. They probably came around 4 or 5 times to collect everyone's rubbish, because they were asking that you didn't leave anything in the seat pocket or anything like that. So yeah, that was fab. One of the other things that they did say was something that I think should happen all the time, which is that once we landed, that they asked everyone to sit in our seats, and you don't get up for your luggage, you don't get up for any reason, even once the seatbelt sign was off. Obviously, if you've been on a plane before, you will know that that does not happen, that the minute the seatbelt signs go off, even sometimes before that happens, there are a load of people who just jump up from their seat and try and get their luggage from the overhead compartment. They try and get in the aisle ready to get off the plane before other people, and they did really insist that didn't happen. Unfortunately, it did happen. There were a lot of people around us who did get up from their seats the minute that they could, even before the seatbelt sign went off. We actually had to wait to get into our allocated gate, so they didn't actually turn the seatbelts off for a while, did they, after we'd landed, and people were still trying to get up, and even people were trying to get up in their seats and still try and access the overhead lockers. It was a very strange situation. The cabin crew were amazing though. They did repeatedly tell people to sit down over the tannoy, and actually a member of cabin crew did come down the aisle to specifically ask people to sit back in their seat, which I thought was amazing, because, you know, it would be easy just to sort of like let people sort of stand up, as long as they're, you know, not creating too much of a commotion. Obviously, usually things don't get said about it, but they were really good. So yeah, props to the EasyJet cabin crew for dealing with that very awkward situation.
They ask everyone to get off kind of row by row, so if the people in front of you, they've got their bags, then you can then start standing up to get your bags as they exit. So that's kind of how they want it to run. People are still a little bit impatient, and it was, especially if you put your bags behind you, it was a little bit tricky trying to get our bags, because we'd kind of put them a little bit behind us because there wasn't space directly over our seat, and the lady who was sat in the row behind us had decided she was one of the ones who wanted to get up anyway before the seatbelt signs were off. Just so happened it was her that was then stood in my way to get our bags. You know what it's like. If you're a traveller and you've been on a plane before, you know what it's like. But the cabin crew are really, really trying hard to make sure that that doesn't happen, and just to make sure everyone stays safe. But yeah, they tried. They tried their best. It was a good attempt. When we got to Charles de Gaulle Airport, we were expecting a long queue, but we're not sure if it's because things are quieter right now, but we didn't end up at the same gate that we normally go into. They have been having building work though, and having additions to their terminal and things, so we don't know if it's to do with that or whether it's to do with a lack of travellers. But the new gates was amazing, and there was no line at all. We just breezed straight through there. They didn't ask for a health declaration form, although, you know, take them just in case. And we were expecting temperature checks as well, weren't we?
Yeah, from what we'd read on the French government website and elsewhere, we were expecting temperature checks. We did see a sign up for saying something about temperature checks. We didn't see anyone there though, and nobody asked us to sort of come over for a check or anything. So whether or not that's something that's changed, or it's still the same now, we're not too sure, are we?
No. It was really easy at the other side, and yeah, we were literally, and because we didn't have any bags to pick up, we breezed through there in no time at all. Again, whether that's going to stay the same, we've got no clue, but it was really, really easy for us. And yeah, we just walked straight out into the main terminal building, and then it was time to look for the sign for the train. When we walked out into arrivals, we were in Terminal 2 and we looked for signs for the train station, and we turned right and just kept walking all the way down the terminal. You pass a McDonald's, you pass different gates, you also walk past a shop. The signs are really frequent though and let you know you're walking in the right direction, and also they have like a little handy roughly how long it's going to take you to walk to the train stations. It is quite a long walk, it's about 15 minutes, but it's in a straight line. When you kind of get through a checkpoint, you kind of see things change a little bit, and you want to look on the left because that's where the escalators are to get down to the train station, and it's on 2 levels, so you do have to kind of take both sets of escalators to get down into the main station. When you are coming down the second set of escalators, you can see there are some ticket machines on the right there for the RER line, but we got the TGV, which is a really fast train. It's still on the left, and there is a ticket office as well.
So the machine was actually really self-explanatory. It had a bit where you could change to English, and then you could make your selections. We didn't get our tickets in advance, obviously, so we were just getting them for whenever the next train going to Marne Valley was. You just type in, start typing in where you want to go, and then it does come up as an option. So you select that option and whether or not you want single or return, and how many passengers are travelling. Then you have to go into sort of a thing about each traveller, and you have to do the exact same thing for passenger 1 and passenger 2. Basically they just want to know whether or not, you know, sort of it's your age and whether or not you can have a reduction on your journey. We were paying full price. It then comes up with the basically the available tickets for the next trains. The ones in blue were the second class, the ones in green were first class, and we basically just selected second class, whatever the cheapest one was, for the next available train, because we knew we were only going to be on it for 10 minutes. So once you've made that selection, then you will be taken through to a screen where you will need to pay. We have got a currency card which is loaded with euros, so we popped that in, and then it printed out our tickets, which actually had a lot of information on there. It had information about which platform we needed to go to, which number carriage our allocated seats were in, and obviously what number seat we were in. And we had no intentions of actually finding our seats, just because it's only a 10-minute journey, and by the time you found your seat and found somewhere for your bag to go, it just wasn't really worth it. But there is actually a big screen that has a sort of a picture of the train on it and the order the carriage is in, because they don't go in their numbered order. So you can find sort of like whereabout on the train your carriage is if you do actually want to find your allocated seat. Marne Valley Chessy is the first stop from the airport. It literally took 10 minutes. It was so fast. It was so easy. We just couldn't believe that we'd made it from the airport to Disneyland in 10 minutes, because we normally get a private transfer which takes about 50 minutes. Once you get up to the main part of the station, the first exit doors that you see will take you out to the bus stops. So if you need a bus to get to your hotel, that's where all the bus stops are. We wanted to go directly into Disney Village, so we kept on walking around the station, past the shop, and headed for the main doors, the doors that you can see once you're in Disney Village. So we headed straight out there. We could see Disney Village, you could see the parks, and yeah, we were there at Disneyland. So that's pretty much everything. Hopefully you found this video useful, particularly if you are thinking of getting a plane and then a train to Disneyland. We definitely would have loved to have a video like this to watch before we tried it for the first time. So hopefully it's put your mind at ease and how easy and quick it is. If you are new to our channel and you haven't yet watched any of our other videos, we would love for you to go and check those out. We had an amazing time at Disneyland Paris this last trip, so we would love you to watch those park vlogs. We also did a room and resort tour from Hyde Park Ceres, which is where we stayed on this trip, so if you've not watched that yet, hopefully you'll find that one useful too. And just check out all our other Disney content if you are hanging around on our channel. We have been to Disneyland Paris lots of times, so there is lots of different times of year that we've got vlogs from on there as well, so check those out.
Yeah, we also pop all of our pictures onto Instagram, so if you're not following us on Instagram, please do go over and check it out over there. And also that's probably the best way to get in touch with us if you've got any questions or comments, or you just want to chat Disney. Yeah, send us a message over on Instagram or drop it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, have a magical day.
Wait 100 years on down for the first guy you meet, and you're still waiting on the one who's gonna sweep you off your feet. Kissing so many frogs, they all turned into doves. How they get it so right? Fairy tales are just